Hello everyone and welcome to this Unreal Engine tutorial. My name is Luca and today we will find out together why exactly Unreal Engine is the currently best solution on the market for game development and how to safely navigate through the Epic Games Launcher. I also want to show you exactly how and why specific things work best in Unreal Engine and which menu tabs you have to use to get your games working. Without further ado, let's head right into the Epic Games Launcher. This is how the Epic Games Launcher will look when we first start it. We have the Store Library and Unreal Engine tab on the left, and we will only have a look at the Unreal Engine tab today. So let's click onto it. Here we have the News tab. The News tab will contain every news published by Unreal Engine itself. So, for example, there is a new game animation sample which you can just check out by clicking onto it. Then we have, if we go a little bit further down, the blog. So a little bit more information about specific projects you might have more information about. And if we go further down, there will be the community resources and Unreal on Twitch. So especially the community resources, always feel free to reach out to them, to anyone inside those discussions and get the help you might need. If we go into the samples tab, there are a few different samples, not just game ready ones, but also some you can use for film creation, for example. So we have the Lyra starter game, which I would highly recommend to use for PvP shooters, for example, as a startup project. You can easily use the already existing project and just adjust it, even if you want to play online or with multiple friends locally. They will all have that already in the sample. The city sample is from The Matrix Awakens, so it was used for a film, and it was completely built in Unreal Engine 5. And you can actually just try it out. I mean, if you can download all the 168 gigabytes the sample has for you. So please watch out, those samples can get quite big, so always check the download size before you download some of those. The UE feature samples are more interesting for us, at least since we want to develop games. And the content examples is the most useful one I found yet. So this one contains all content examples of the current available content. So you can check out Nanite, you can check out chaos features, you can check out everything that makes Unreal Engine special right into this example. It's all coded in there. And you can just review it by going like through a museum or something like that. So I highly recommend trying this out if you want to find something out about new features. If we go further down, then there will be game ready samples. So, such as the crop out sample project or the Lyra starter game I already mentioned. And those are actually working games. You can just download them and play them in your launcher or even build them or whatever you like with them. And as you might already have noticed, there is the Valley of the Ancient, which could be familiar for you because it was the first demo project launched in Unreal Engine 5 back in the days. We also have the legacy samples, which are not currently, no, not based on the current version, but were built previously in the engine, and you can still test them out by downloading the right engine version. Let's go to the marketplace. This marketplace contains game-ready assets for the Unreal Engine itself. So what I highly recommend to you is looking once per month into this section here, because this is the free for the month, and you will always get 5 packages for free. As you can see, those are very expensive from time to time. One with 110 euros, and you can just get them for free in exactly this month. You can also have different other stuff, but some of them might be very pricey, and the others can be for free, of course, as well. So always look out for those if you want to have something. Let's go to the library. The library contains all your downloaded engine versions. In my case, 5.2.1 and 5.4.4. Here are my projects located. Those are only shown here if you have them opened once in Unreal Engine. They won't be shown when you have them at a different location than the Unreal Engine folder. Just keep that in mind when you're missing a project here. Open it and start it from your file explorer directly, okay? The vault contains all the different plugins or assets you can have at the marketplace. And as you can see, I've done this for not just 1 year, but I think 3 now. That's why I have a lot of stuff in there, and you can just add it to the project by clicking on add to project. You simply pick your project, go to add your project, and it will be downloaded in no time. We also have the option to download or upgrade any engine version here. So when we click on the plus here, there will be a new version for us, and you won't have any of them available on the first time. So when you want to download a specific one, such as the 5.5.0 preview, we will use the 5.4.4 in this case. So we will download 5.4.4, but I already have that, so it doesn't get shown here anymore. So I could click on that, go into install, and it will download it once I click the install button, and that should be it. If you don't want to have it anymore, just click on the remove slot and it will be removed from your device. The twin motion, I don't exactly know what this does, to be honest, and the reality capture, I also don't know. I guess some kind of assets creation by using your camera, but since I don't know exactly, it doesn't matter. The library also has the downloads part down here. So when you download something, you can exactly see what's your progress and the settings, whatever you want for your Epic Games launcher to be set. But I use it as it is from the start, and I'm quite happy with it. So after that being said, let's launch our first Unreal Engine version. You can either click on the launch button here or here. It doesn't matter that much. Just click onto one launch button. As you can see, this might take a little while, but we will end up in this Unreal Engine project browser, and we have different options on the left side. Those are my currently available projects, but let's go into the game section first. Here we have the blank project where you can see this is a preview of the already built map. And we have different options here, which we will cover in a second. We have a first person, we have a third person, and a top-down model, which we can use to build up our world on. And we also have some kind of XR, like handheld AR and virtual reality, and vehicles if you want to build a racing game, for example. This will be a fully physics-based vehicle, so you don't have to do much except for changing the textures, for example, if you want to create a new car. Yeah, so Unreal Engine offers you a lot right out of the box. We also have film, video, and live events. It's pretty cool because Unreal Engine is capable of a lot of things like virtual production, DMX, in-camera VFX, and display. What exactly this is, I don't know, to be fair, but it is used widely in the film industry these days, so keep in mind that you can also create some cool film scenes with Unreal Engine. Architecture is also not far from being possible. We have a different versions here to create actually houses. Then we have automotive, product design and manufacturing, such as a virtual photo studio, a product configurator, colab viewer, or handheld AR once more. And we also have a simulation. So you can have a blank simulation, the handheld AR and virtual reality. So Unreal Engine is absolutely stacked on options you can use for your project. You will definitely find the right one. When we click onto the games folder, we will now click on blank. So if you click on blank, you can see those options are down here, and I already mentioned them. What are the differences between Blueprint and C++? I always recommend clicking on C++ here, and I can explain you exactly why. When you click on Blueprint, you will only be able to use blueprints and can only add C++ code by adding plugins to the Unreal Engine itself. So I just recommend clicking on C++ since you will be able to create blueprints, but also to use C++ code together with them, for example, as a base class. Then we have the target platform. You can pick between desktop and mobile. I will go for desktop here, of course, because I'm at a PC. And the quality preset can be maximum or scalable. Scalable is more likely to be on weaker PCs, and maximum will be on higher engines. So, such as my PC, which has a 4070 in it. So, I can go with maximum here since I want to show you exactly what Unreal Engine is actually capable of. Then we have the starter content. This will include some assets, sounds, and some textures, but we don't need that for now. And we also would have ray tracing available, and I will click onto that. Please only do this if your PC is capable of it, and this will do exactly what you think it does. It will activate global illumination and ray tracing, so we will have a very, very detailed and realistic looking scene in the end. Now we can click on open or create, and this will be our first project we will start. So this can take a little bit of time. See you in a second. Well, now you should be either in the Visual Studio program or in Unreal Engine directly. I will show you first how Visual Studio works best, and then we will just switch to Unreal Engine, okay? So what we have here is Visual Studio. Why Visual Studio exactly? That's easy to explain because Unreal Engine uses Visual Studio to compile any code you write in the engine. So Visual Studio is not just my personal preference, but the engine's preference, so I can't change that. What you can see on the right is the Solution Explorer in Visual Studio itself. You can have the engine here, and you will definitely see this holds quite a lot of stuff for us. For example, it holds all the source code available for the engine. It contains all the plugins already included when you download your version of the engine. And it also has any external dependencies, so you won't ever need to use that except if you change anything. For example, you add a plugin into your engines folder, then it might end up here. Otherwise, the only interesting part is the My Project here. So I've already clicked that open, but what you can see here is the config files. So this will be how your editor looks and also how your game will be initialized. So the default game any, as you know from other games maybe, can change different values you have in the game. For example, your brightness level or gamma level or whatever you use. And this is the folder where you could change that. If you add any C++ code to the project, you can see the My Project folder here. So under source, My Project, there will be a private and public folder once you add a C++ to your project. In my case, we haven't added anything yet, so there can't be anything. And we can just go on with the other data, which we can see here. So the projects, I've never used them. I don't think you will need them anytime because it's all compiled by Unreal Engine already. And also the programs folder where is automation and actually quite a lot of stuff such as building and so on is inside, won't be needed for us at least. So our part will only happen in this My Project and source folder most of the time. As you can see, the project is already loaded. If you don't have that already, you can click here and then you can click on Set as Startup Project and then it will be added here. And when you now click the local Windows debugger, it will open a debug version inside Unreal Engine so you can directly adjust your code in here and reload it immediately in the engine. Since Unreal Engine has opened up in the background already, I will skip that for now, but we will see that later on when we do our first real Unreal Engine project. Back in the engine, you will see this window. We have quite a lot of stuff here, and we will go through all of it one step after another. But before we do that, as you might have noticed, I already had to turn on my turbo mode here because the engine is taking so much RAM and resources. And we first have to ensure that all of you are able to use this program correctly. Okay? So what you can see here is when I hold down the right mouse button and I just move my mouse, I can look around in the engine. I can also move around holding down the right mouse button and pressing WASD. And as you can see, I'm moving very, very quickly. Why is this the case? You might not be as fast as I am currently because I have changed my camera speed, which you can see up here. And you can control that by scrolling down or up. As you can see, the camera speed changes and it will change my movement availability. So I can only go very slow now. To check if your performance is good enough, you can easily check that by showing the FPS. So if show stats is not activated here, just click on it and also click on show FPS. Now you will see the FPS are getting shown here. And once I move around very fast, my FPS are barely changing. So it's no problem here, but I can simulate the problems you might have by changing the screen percentage. And this is also the first option. So click onto this burger menu up here and click onto screen percentage. Now you have the option to custom override it, and you can either turn it up or down. You will see when I go very high, I will have some FPS issues. And this is the biggest part you can change. So I recommend you go into screen percentage and turn it down to around, I guess 25 to 30 should be fine, something like this. And now you can see I will barely scratch the 60 FPS mark anymore because I'm almost all the time over it. Then we have the other option, and I will just go back to simulating that by turning it up once more. And now we can click on the settings part up here. Here is the second option, and it is the engine scalability settings. As you can see, I have everything on Epic. That is not necessary by far. For example, you can turn down shading, reflections, textures, and so on, each individually, or you just click already created preset from the engine, such as medium, and you should see your FPS get up a little bit at least for now. And when I go to low, it should go even a little bit higher. Okay, now I'm 60 FPS anymore, once more. And we can see the shadows are not as clear as they were before, but the whole project is very smooth and we don't have any issues with performance. If you still have any troubles, you can also see that here, scalability low. You can change this, and you also have the tab underneath it where you can change the material quality level. I can show you what changes when you do this. When I go very close towards it, that's quite tricky here, and I now turn down the material quality level to low, you can see it's not as perfect as it was before, but it's not that much worse. So I think this could also work very fine. You can see the exact difference here once I click onto it, and it's almost not recognizable. So I highly recommend the first option, changing it to your screen percentage. And I will do that back now to, I guess, 75%. It was something like that. Yeah, 72 is fine. Let's click on custom override, and I have a smooth experience once more. Okay, now that we covered the performance issues, we can actually head further into what the engine is capable of in terms of menus. What can we click on and why is it necessary for us to know where it's located? One part is we have the file option here. It holds the new level creation for us, the open level, open some assets, saving the current level, import something into the level, and we can also create a new project from here. The edit part has different options for us. You can see all of the hotkeys here. So how are you able to navigate very fast, or how to cut something, how to copy something? I guess the only interesting part is here to use Control D to duplicate something. And we have the editor preferences here, which I will cover very shortly. Everything you change in here will be changed when you view the editor. So for example, when I go to something like this, and I click onto OK, you will see now the orange is pink, and of course I don't want that, so let's go back, let's put it back to something orange, that's good. And this is exactly how you will see this editor here. We have also the options of the project settings. The project settings cover exactly this, let's say, tab, I guess, and it has some different options which I quickly want to cover. First of all, you can change the map you start your editor with, and you also start your game with. So once you build your game and you don't know why exactly it chose the wrong map, that's why. So you haven't changed it here in the game default map, so it opens up the old one. The game mode itself is only consistent over a certain level. I can show you that very quickly. So you can see when we click onto here, you can see there is the game mode base set for the whole project, and here the world. So this level doesn't have a specific game mode, so it just takes the one which is set for the whole project. This is what you can change in, no, that's the live coding, that's the wrong one. In here, and it will be only consistent once this level is loaded. The game instance, instead, is used for the whole game. So once you click on start, the game instance will be there, and you can change your levels from main menu to the game level and back to the main menu and so on, and it will stay consistent. It just gets deleted once you totally close the game. So this is the preferred part where we want to save our variables to, and then save it to the system. Well, we also have some different parts here. We have, for example, Lumen, which is unique to Unreal Engine. That's the global illumination method Unreal Engine offers us. And if you have actually problems using this, you can just click onto none, and it should give you back a lot of performance. But if you don't need it, just stick with the screen percentage and you will be fine as well, I hope. Good. Now we can cover the window part. Here we have the cinematics, the outliner, and so on. So that is, for example, the outliner is the part here on the right. So you can have multiple of those. I think it doesn't matter that much. It also has the output logs, so maybe you don't see it. So you can just click onto it. It will open up immediately, and it will also be a new one. So this one down here doesn't get affected by it. And yeah, this is what the window tab basically offers. It also offers direct access to the marketplace and Pixel Bridge, and you can load and save a layout. For example, when I want to use my layout like this, I can just click onto window, save my layout, save layout as, let's go with copy, that's fine. Then we go onto window, we change it back to something like this. We go onto window once more, go to load layout, and we go on copy of copy, and you can see the setting will get reset once more. You can also delete some of those, which I will do because that's a very stupid layout. And you can load and save also the default editor layout or the UE4 classic layout. So whatever you like can be saved. And you can also enable full screen, which I won't use here because you won't be able to see my key presses in the lower left corner anymore. Right, so this is what this tab holds in place for us. Here is the possibility to add a new C++ in the tools section. We can just click on it and there are different classes available. And I will get into that in lesson 5, I guess, once we reach the blueprints. And I just will quickly tell you why this is necessary. So you have all classes here. You can pick any of those by just searching for them or click onto them. So that's how you pick your parent class. You can also have the common classes, which is a character, just a walkable thing. So this character is an object that can walk around. A pawn is an actor that can receive input from a controller, so you are able to possess and control him. We have the actor itself. The actor is just an object that gets placed or spawned in the world, and so on. The interesting part is also the player controller and the game mode base, as I mentioned already. The player controller will control the player, and the game mode base will just be available for this level to set it up and to tell him which player controller should be used in the level, which pawn you want to use, and so on. So this is what you configure here. We also have a player state and a game state base. It's mostly for servers, so don't worry about that. And a blueprint function library, which we will see in lesson 5 as well. Blueprint function library is pretty cool, so you can just have your own library of blueprint functions, and this will give you a big advantage because you don't need a base class to add your blueprints to, but you can use them in any. So we will use that later on, as I said. Right. So when you click on next here, you will also be able to select public, private, or nothing. I'm not able to select public or private here anymore. And I already created a class called my class before, and that's why I can't take this name anymore, but I can take, for example, my class 2, and I can decide which path I want to save it to. But most of the time, this is perfect. And as I said, you will see it will end up in my project, source, my project, private. So that is exactly the location I showed you before in Visual Studio. Well, the tool section we already covered, I guess, because there is nothing pretty more interesting, okay, except for you have different options here to find in blueprints. You can have a header preview, you can have some debugging, profiling, platform relevant stuff, and a revision control, so you're able to control it via Git, but you will find all of that around lurking around this window anyway, so I will go back to that later. You have a data validation and so on. You have a build tab where you can build all levels. That might be interesting. It actually is pretty interesting when you want to make your game pre-built, so you can pre-build all the lighting, for example, and you won't have the troubles of a dynamic shadow anymore. So that saves a lot of performance in games itself. Other than that, you can just build anything which is used in the world. Especially interesting as you can just build nanite only, you can build your landscape, which would be interesting here, and so on. You can also build different paths for the navigation, for example, when you want to have your agent walking around, you can just use a navigation mesh, which I will cover with you in 7th lesson, I think. So you will be able to control where it is able to walk and where it isn't. Good. The select is just when you click on a select one here, you can select different stuff like the lights and so on, but this isn't interesting that much. The actor is a little bit interesting since you have the edit options here, the visibility options and so on, but you can also move your mouse around here. So under the one selected, for example, move it down by left clicking, and then you can click onto the landscape and you will be able to toggle the visibility by clicking on the eye or pin it by this small pin here. So this is basically most of the options which are in here for the actor part. Exactly. So the edit, the visibility, and so on. You can also merge actors, which we won't do yet. So just keep in mind you have those options here for setting the pivot point and so on. The help tab is also pretty interesting. So the documentation is not that bad. You can actually have a look into it and you will find most of your problems solved there. And if not, just go to the forums or Q&A section and you will get most of your answers which are needed to make progress in the project. I personally don't use that too often, but I know it helped me using it not from Unreal Engine directly, but putting the link into the browser itself, and then I ended up on this forum, and it is quite helpful sometimes when you have a specific problem. Well, good. So this was the whole part up here. Let's cover the next part, which is located around here. As I said, we will now go on with this section around here. It's a little bit tricky to split those up into different sections, but you will get a hang of it once I'm navigated through it. So we have the save button here, which I always recommend because it saves everything. It's not just that you can see here the save button, but you can also see down here what has been saved already. Since we're already down here, I will also quickly tell you why I exactly said you can have your repositories also differently located on this page. You have it here, the revision control. You can see exactly those stuff I showed you. You have the recompile and reload C++ stuff here, which will directly recompile your C++ code in Visual Studio. The derived data section, I don't exactly know what this is about. You can trace something. You have your, I guess, something like statistics for it. You have a console command where you can just enter something like FPS -1. Let's see if that works. Doesn't work, okay. But you can see once I type it in here, I have different stuff. And this is actually pretty interesting because those console commands um, cost a lot of trouble in Arc, for example, in Arc Survival Ascendant. I can tell you why this is the case because the developers didn't think about it. And since I'm a developer, I tried them out. And yeah, you can deactivate anything. You can deactivate the water. You can deactivate meshes. You can just go through everything. You can go into ghost mode and so on. So once you build your game, make sure that none of these comments work in your game. Okay, that's pretty important, I'd say. You also have the option to switch to Python here. That is exactly what we've seen up here as well. You have the output log, so whatever you do, whatever your game wants to show you is located in here. You can also dock it in layout or just change the settings. And you have your content drawer down here. So if I go for all, we will always have those two folders, content and engine. And you will have your content located in here and all the engine content in here. So our classes, for example, are not located in here, but in a different place, which is in the content folder. And I highly recommend not searching for them in here because you won't be able to find them if you haven't activated the exact right content stuff here. So in our case, we would have needed C++ classes, but you might install a plugin and be not able to find the content. That's exactly why. If you don't tick it here, you won't see the plugin content. And as you can see, that removes a lot of part from the engine, and you will not be able to see it anywhere in here, even though it is in your Explorer. So in your something like this, um, in your File Explorer. Right. It's also pretty interesting because we have a lot of options here. You can tick exactly what you want to find. You can just search for it, for example, shape, and you can just do different stuff here. So it's just your content drawer where you can find all the content available for you. Well, so to sum that up, always stay in the content folder. You can also change that clicking here or clicking here. To switch something from one folder to the next, I highly recommend clicking onto it here and just dragging it here, for example. But this is the option to move your assets around. And you are also able, as I showed you, to import stuff from another project. You can save all in here as well. And you can also add this stuff here, as well as if you click into an empty space, for example, here in the middle of those two, you can also see this popping up. What is it exactly? It is all the options you have to add to your content. So you can have a feature or content pack, as I showed you before. You can have Quixel content. This is from Quixel itself. So you have meshes you can import. You just simply click onto them. I think I can do that here, but it will be changed anyway. So Let's just allow this. And you will see I will end up on Quixel. I would have to log in now, I guess, but you can click onto here and then you can select your quality, click onto load normally, not sign in, and then you will have it in your project. You also have the options, let's go to content, it's a little bit easier, to create a new blueprint class. You will see exactly the same as with the C++ class, and the all classes button is here, so you can pick from any of those. And I will show you exactly how this works in a later tutorial. I think it is part, I guess 7 again, so we will have a look at that for sure. We also have, not here, we have the option to add an animation, the animation blueprint, blend space, and so on. We have artificial intelligence, like a behavior tree, audio. That's pretty unique. Unreal Engine offers you meta sounds, so you can create your own sounds in Unreal Engine, such as using equalizer and waves and waveform transformation and so on. You can really create your own sounds in here as well. Blueprints is what I told you before, the part of Unreal Engine where you can have your own classes by visually coding. So you just stick them together and that works. Cinematics, you have a level sequence, editor utilities. I just have to scroll a little bit further. Editor utilities would be something you can change in your editor here directly. Foliage, I will cover that in a second. FX, Niagara, and so on. Gameplay, we have the camera asset, the camera mode, and the lightweight distance. Input, that's pretty interesting. Unreal Engine changed that to input action and input mapping context. So you can just create an input action, and this input action is then used inside an input mapping context to tell you what it does. So you can have, for example, the input of the left mouse button, you put it into your input mapping context, and you tell it should, for example, work only 10 times and then it shouldn't work anymore. Or you can go for the input action and you only want it when it's hold, not when it's just clicked. So this will do a lot of different stuff in there. Right. We also have the material stuff, so you can create your own material. We have media. I haven't used that, but I guess it will be some streaming and platform and media player stuff. Miscellaneous, that's quite a little bit more than we normally use. What I use, for example, often is a curve, so you can change between or interpolate between two colors, for example, black and white, and you can have a dynamic material based on that. Paper 2D is the 2D option of Unreal Engine, but I haven't used it yet, and as far as I've seen, Unreal Engine is not as good as Unity for this task. And we have a physics part where we have a physics asset or physics material. We can use the physics material to determine how a different surface would react to different inputs. For example, a car landing on it. Should it bounce? Should it just, yeah, whatever, stick to it and so on. Textures are how to create textures. We can create areas and so on from that. Tool presets, I don't know exactly what that is. User interface will be interesting, especially for the part Andreas is doing with you. So we have the widget blueprint here, which will create, as you know, normally this cool UI on your screen. And world is just data layer and HLOD layer, which you will create automatically once you build your world. Right. So this covered everything except for this mode here and for the outliner and so on. So I will just head to that in a second. Good. We now have captured everything except for the specific parts up here. Why didn't I mention that earlier? I can tell you why. The problem is that everything in here is connected and even duplicated. So as I showed you, the revision control is down here and it is also under tools and here in the revision control. So it's quite hard to build a structure from it. We now captured everything that happens outside of the viewport. So this right here is the viewport and this is the outliner towards it. So what we will capture now is everything from here, which is happening inside the viewport. It's not specifically for the viewport, but we can add something to the viewport to it. Or we can change settings for the viewport for it. All those settings in here are not for the viewport, but in the viewport. So we will change it directly in here. For example, when it's a little bit tricky, but yeah, let's go for lit and unlit. It will change everything in the viewport. Not for, but in the viewport. So this is not a setting for, but in the viewport, right? Sorry for the confusing part, but I think it's necessary to tell you exactly why and how stuff works. We have the different selection modes here, so we can go for landscape, foliage, and so on. I will do that a little bit later, so just wait a second for that, and we will go on for what can we add to the viewport now. We can just import content, as you've already seen, so you might be familiar with this part. We also have the option to place actors and basic stuff in here. So, for example, an actor and character and pawn, we already know those. We have lights we can place in here. We have shapes. We have cinematic stuff, so we can create a level, sequence, actor. We have media blades, visual effects, so post-processing, sky volume, and so on, all the stuff you can see here. And we also have the other volumes, such as, which is quite interesting, the nav mesh bounce volume or trigger volume. We have all classes in here, which you can find also in the blueprint class. And we also have place actors panel. I think it's something like you can place it directly from here, but I never use this. I always use that here. For the viewport and the level itself, it's also important to be able to create a new empty blueprint class, convert some selection here. You can select something of those and connect that to a blueprint class. I don't recommend it. I recommend, or when you do that, you can do it, of course. But when you do this, just rename the stuff, please, because it will have the name it has currently here. And I think that's not convenient for anyone who doesn't know the project, right? So we have to change that as soon as we do it. We can also open a blueprint class, for example, a ceiling light or stuff like that from here, but we can also click into the content drawer and do it like this. You can see there are multiple options and each of them is almost the same and almost all the time correctly working. What you might not find is when someone is changing anything in the level, you might not know why it is spawned or something like that. And this is because it's in the level blueprint. Each level has its own blueprint, and I don't recommend it using it for it, but some of the people out there use it, so I have to cover it. And here you can see how a blueprint looks like. We always have the event begin play and the event tick. The event begin play gets called once you start your game, once you start this specific scene. And the event tick will happen every frame. So be careful what you put into here. I will tell you this once more once we are going deeper into the blueprints. So just be aware that something might get spawned by the level blueprint and you won't be able to find it in any other blueprint. So always have a look into here when you can't find the reason of your spawning or despawning or whatever you have to fix. Right, so this is the main part here. We also have the option to set the game mode for the project setting. We can just select the game space and so on. And we can also select a specific game mode for this world. So that is for the project, and this is for the whole world. We can also select a different game mode here, and this is once more specifically for this world. So be aware that if you want to have different game modes for different worlds, change it here, okay? Good. We also have the option to add a level sequence or add a level sequence of slots. What does this? We can just create a level sequence of slots, and you can see it opens up something like this. Now you might wonder what this exactly does, and we can just go, for example, we add a simple shape here, just a cube, and now I will move a little bit further away and make it a little bit bigger, I guess. Oh, actually, that doesn't make that much of a difference. But we can add the cube now in here. So active sequencer, and here's the cube. So we just bind it here. And now the position, for example, gets dragged. So we can actually go here, and you can see it's all a little bit small. So We go here onto the transform, click onto the plus, so we add a new key here, move it, go a little bit further. Oh, that's the wrong direction. We just should do it like this. And now we can click onto the add key. And once we play it now, that can be done with the space. It will move automatically. So this is how cinematics work in Unreal Engine. It's quite similar to Blender, for example, and it's also used widely in the film industry because it's so easy. And you can have multiple shots, you can adjust them, you can make them shorter, you can make them larger, you can change the FPS, you can change when you don't want the clipping to happen, you can just move it over and stuff like this. So it's a pretty convenient feature to use right from the beginning. And this will also be a task for your semester project. You can either use the sequencer here or you can use the normal sequencer, so just a level sequence, and save it, and then do the same with the cube. But I'm looking forward to see what your room will look like. So with that being said, we can go on for the play. The play, of course, is how to start this level. We can just start it and we will spawn here. And we will be able to move around and stuff like this since we are a camera, right? And you will notice you don't have to use your right mouse button anymore because it's just WASD and you can move around freely with your mouse. So basically like in any other game. You also have the option to use Q and E. That is in Unreal Engine also. For going up, you use E. For going straight down, you use Q. And this is exactly how you can maneuver through the engine. Then we have different options. We can have a selected viewport. We have a new editor window. We have a standalone mobile game. We have a standalone game and simulate. What is the difference here? I can tell you very quickly. This will open up a new window once you play it. You see? Then we have the other option, which is a standalone game mobile. That will take a little longer because I have to save the scene. And it will be creating a totally new, yes, let's go, and it will create a totally new game for us. So this can take a little time. Let's see how exactly. Sorry, I wanted to build a standalone game. And now I click onto it and it will open up an Excel, which an executable file, which gets created immediately. Okay, I should have recompiled it first, but you see, I could change it here and it would create a standalone game for me. And simulate would show you everything which happens right in there. So deloading of the actors and so on. So you can basically debug it completely. Let's go back to selected viewport. That's the normally used one. Of course, we have some problems here because it's not built now anymore, but that doesn't matter. So we can just get rid of it. And we have different other options to cover. We can quickly launch it in a different window device. So here on my device, we can start at the current camera location, or we can use the default player start. The default player start is located anywhere in this world. So when you move out, for example, very, very fast and very wide, you might not even be able to see your world anymore like this. But what's pretty cool, be, you can always click onto F once you're in this viewport here, and you will immediately move to your sky sphere, or in my case, I wanted to go back to my cube. Here we go. There's my cube located. You can see I'm moving way too fast to see it, but it will always get back into focus once I press M. So this is how you can quickly get back to the object. And now we only have to cover the platforms part, especially. Oh no, there's one more thing here. You can change the number of players, then you will have different windows. That's only relevant for net mode, so you can play as a listen server or a client for multiplayer games. And you have advanced settings, which I won't cover here because it's too much, and we will just skip that for now. Then you have platforms you can build for Android, iOS, Linux, ARM64, tvOS, or Windows, and you can change that by using the project launcher and the device manager. You can check how it looks like and so on. But building won't be a part of this whole semester, so maybe we will build your game in the end, but we will see. Right, so now we only have the settings part, and the settings part you already saw. You can change the volume, make it muted, or just play it. It doesn't matter that much. You can hide the viewport and so on. And what you can already see is also not just the viewport, but the outliner. And each of these outliners, each of these objects, these are all objects in the scene, except for the landscape. I had to click on that to open that up. But inside the cube here, you have different components. You can see that already, and you can click on the static motion component and move it around like this. You can also just change the material. For example, we go for brick wall or something like this. And this is exactly done in here. But we will cover that a little bit more when we go into blueprints, because Unreal Engine is very much about ticking the right option at the right time. And right. So now that we've done this, only one thing is left, and this is how to navigate the selection, landscape, and foliage mode, and what does it do to our viewport. So we will go on with this now. Good. Now, as I told you, we only have the selection mode left and the part inside the viewport, but we will cover that in a bit. So let's go for the selection mode. What does landscape do? Let's click onto it, and it might lag first of all. So, as you might know from Planet Zoo or something like that, you are able to form your landscapes. So you can just use the sculpt tool. You can adjust, when we did it, it's a little bit bigger. We can also adjust the strength, we can adjust the brush size, we can adjust the brush fall off, and so on. And we can also flatten it, we can smooth it, we can, all the stuff you would normally see in different engines such as Blender and so on, you can do here as well. I highly recommend you playing around with this and try what you want. Just add some mountains and so on. We will also have a pretty interesting topic this semester where you create your own open world. I'm looking forward to what you do exactly with it, and I'm pretty interested how exactly you use the landscape tool to make your own happy place. So that's just an open world where you feel happy in, what you would like to navigate through, and so on. But any more details are in the PDF already, so we will cover that in the first lesson anyway. Good. Then we have the foliage tool. To do this, I have to add a foliage first. I'm now currently in the content drawer once I click onto it, and now I can click onto the foliage tab down here. We can click on static mesh foliage, and what this does, we just don't name it for now, don't do this, but please, for this time, we don't need that. And we can just select, for example, a narrow capsule and select what is our density, what should be the scaling, what should be the offset, what should be the align max angle, and so on. We can check the mobility, the collision. There's a lot of stuff in there. We don't need anything of that, but we have to save it still because we changed the static mesh foliage. Now you might wonder, what's the cool thing about it? And I can tell you exactly. We can just click onto the foliage here, and as you can see, this new instance static mesh foliage shows up here. Now you can try to draw. We're already in the paint mode, but the paint mode doesn't help you anymore because you can't draw here. That's the point, because you haven't checked it here. Once you check that and you go a little bit further, I think you should see immediately what changes. And here are our capsules on the landscape exactly in the right angle. And this is exactly how you can build your open world. It doesn't take much, does it? So we can even go with a bigger brush size and just paint it here. And we have a totally correct representation of those capsules. And none of the FPS are getting rigged at the moment. So that's quite a cool tool to paint a landscape very, very quickly. You can also, of course, erase it. I will just go for the biggest part here and then click on it. And you have already gotten rid of all of those foliages. And I'm pretty interested in what you can do with them and how you can use them to populate your world. I've seen quite a lot of interesting stuff here. I did it myself once, and it's so cool. It just makes a lot of fun painting those landscapes and creating some mountains in the back and so on. So please just have a blast and try it out. Test whatever you want. We also have the mesh paint here. That would be something we can, yeah, fill some faces of an object. We can just, yeah, we can just add one. I guess that's the easiest part. Let's go for where's the basic? Here it is. Not the shapes. Here we are. And I want a cube. Let's go for a cube. We make it big because otherwise, oh, that's one point I wanted to show you. Um, we can just take the scale here and move it up to 10 or to 100, and now you can see the cube even from a distance. But we also can untick this, and then it will only scale for one axis. So this is how you can easily scale and, yeah, change the position of your object in the details folder, or in the details part of the engine. Right. So now you see we have this one selected, and now we could just paint it by using a color. I don't know, let's go with that. And that's okay, let's go with red. And we can just paint it red. So this is how you could paint your objects, or do it in a different mode, of course. Right, we also have the modeling part, which is even more interesting because you have basically any options you need, and you know from any other shaping tool such as Blender or stuff like this. And we can just use a simple deform, for example. Let's take a warp here. Ah, that looks pretty decent. Cannot modify, built-in engine assets. I see. Okay, then let's try it once more. Maybe it works now. Oh, it doesn't. Okay. Then we just create one from the modeling part here. We create a box, let's say, and we want it to, should currently already be located on my mouse cursor. It is. So we can go for 10,000 width, 10,000 depth, and 10,000 height. And now we should see it from a distance. Perfect, here it is. And this is how we can edit. Just simply click on it, and that will add it to the viewport. And now we can deform it. And we can, for example, take the warp. And here we go. This is how our warped cube would look like. You can also deform, smooth it. Yeah, we can UV map it, and so on. I haven't used it in Unreal Engine to be fair yet, but I think it is quite a good tool. And it shows once more what Unreal Engine already has included in itself, so you don't have to use any other engine basically. Right, what is more interesting for us is the fracture part. Have you ever thought about how to split an object into pieces and how it would look like if it explodes? I know this is already built in Blender, for example, but we can just add a new fracture mode. Yeah, let's go for cheesy box, that's fine. And now we can change these fractures by an explode amount. So we can make them explode even further, and I have to check where exactly it is. Give me a second. Here we are, uniform. And this is how our fracture would look like in the end. So when we go now with the explode amount, I think I made it too big, but maybe you get the hang of it when I do it a little bit bigger. 1,000 doesn't work. Okay, let's fracture it. And you can see this is how it would explode when you hit it by a physics object or something like that. You can even fracture it further. Doesn't matter that much. You basically can fracture it unlimited until your PC says, no, done with that. And this is exactly how it would look like in the viewport when you have, for example, a collision with a wall and the wall shatters. You can just tell the engine before how it works, and everything else will be done by the Chaos engine. So this is one unique part in Unreal Engine, which I highly recommend. It's pretty cool. For example, the radial for shattering like a window and stuff like this. Pretty cool stuff. We also have a brush editing Now we can just use a pen and picture it or paint it differently. And we have an animation tab where we could use different poses right in the viewport to see what it looks like inside the game. Great. Now that we captured all of those, we can go back to the selection mode and I will hit you up with the next part up here. Perfect. Now that we covered every option except for the in-viewport options, we can go on with them. We have, first of all, a very specific coordinate system inside the Unreal Engine. You can see it in the bottom left corner here, and it basically has the x-axis towards you, the y-axis to the left, and the z-axis up. That might be a little bit inconvenient because the y-axis is normally used to the right, but Unreal Engine does it this way, so this is some recommendation I can give you in general. Always ensure you've checked in which coordinate system you're located currently at the beginning of your work, okay? Now we have the burger menu I already showed you, and we have different options. For example, we can disable the real-time override. So for example, the painting we did on the cube wouldn't be shown in real time, but only if we start the game. And I don't like that, so I always use real time. We can show the FPS, of course, you already saw that. It will just add a little counter here. But what you haven't seen yet is that we can change the stats, so we can just activate and deactivate whatever we like. For example, when you want it very detailed, we just click on detail and you will see exactly what your graphics card is seeing currently. So how many frames, how many draws have been done, how many game frames you actually have, and so on. So you will have a total overview over that. So use that for debugging anytime you need it. And we have just to get rid of this again to not show any stats anymore. What I still want to show you is that you not just can have stats, but for example, we have the FPS here. You can also enter them via console. So you can go, for example, for t.max FPS. Sorry, I missed the F here. And then we go for 120 and you will see immediately now I have 80 frames. So this is how you can change stuff like that also in the console. And I just recommend you typing it in there and will be shown somewhere around here. And you can just click on it and you will get a hang of it very, very soon. Good. We have the show toolbar. We can just activate and deactivate the in-viewport options. And we can change the field of view, of course, the far view plane, and so on. And I already showed you the screen percentage, which I recommend you override once more when you have too little performance. We also have the allow cinematic control. This means we can move objects inside the scene by a sequencer, for example. If we don't do that, we won't be able to have that in our scene. And what I want to show you is the game view. So I just clicked onto the box here and then I just move it a little bit up and I have already typed in hidden here. So when I click on hidden here, actor hidden in game, and I click onto it, you can see this actor is currently shown. But what happens if I just activate the game view? It doesn't get shown anymore because it's hidden in game, of course. So you don't have to start your game always to see how it looks exactly. You can also click on game view and everything that is not inside the scene in game will not get shown anymore. Right. So then we have the immersive mode. So you can have the immersive and regular mode. Immersive mode looks something like this. I like to use the regular mode, so I have a little bit more overview. You can also allow camera shakes or disallow them. You can have bookmarks where you want to jump to. So this is quite handy because you can just set your current position as a bookmark and then you can click on jump to bookmark and it will jump automatically there. Right, you can create a camera here. You have a pretty cool feature. You can create a high resolution screenshot so you don't have to capture your screen, but you can just don't go too high here because it will crash your PC, trust me. I did it once with 8 and this didn't go well, but just saying. And you can enter the screenshot size multiplier and usually don't go over 2 here. And I highly recommend using date and timestamp as image name so you can capture something directly from the viewport without anything extra here. You can also change your layouts immediately here and you can have the advanced settings, but we won't cover that this time. so we can just skip that. The perspective is pretty interesting because you can just have your perspective clicked here and you can see the top view, the bottom view, the left view, and so on. You can also have the cinematic viewport, how does it look in your sequence, but we will stick with the default viewport and the perspective for now, since we want to be located in the scene somewhere at least. Right. That's not the most interesting part because the perspective can also be changed here. And this is really interesting because as you can see, we now have here a representation of our back, right, and top view. And we can also move, for example, the cube here by just the z-axis or whatever we like. In this case, it was the x-axis, but doesn't matter that much. We can only move it the z-axis. We can also do that in here, of course, but it's a little bit more detailed when you move it in this section. You can also just maximize the window here or change it. You can just use it, for example, you want the left and you want not wireframe but unlit here. So you can just change this scene view and it will change those two as well. No, in this case, actually they fixed it. Okay, cool. So I can go for lit here, for example, and the other stays the same. So that is pretty cool. And now when I click on maximize the window, this window is currently the one I opened. So I can just click onto the left one here and click onto here and I will be back in this window. So that's just for placement. You also have the option, as you already seen, we have lit, unlit, wireframe, and so on. You can also do this in this scene, of course. And you have way, way more options, which are pretty cool here because you can just show the visibility, for example, of the collision. You can also, I will go back to lit, and you can just use the nanite visualization, which is unique to Unreal Engine, nanite. And you will see, we go to nanite visualization, and we will take all of those. Let me see. Let's go for Lumen, I think. Yeah, this works at least directly because we haven't used nanite on any of these here. And you can see we have the different geometry normals, we have the reflection view, we have this pink, so where is the missing surface cache, and so on. This is used for debugging, and you can see it is not rendered when we are not in the viewport anymore. So that's exactly how it would work. We can also just make it a nanite for now. Give me a second. We just go onto here, go onto the cube, double click it, enable nanite support, save it. Now it has to be recompiled. Yes, we want. And now it should work with the overview of nanite. Of course it does. And you can see exactly how nanite works. You can also click onto those and you will get a little bit further information here. And you have the clusters, the instances, the primitives, and so on. So nanite basically is a pretty cool tool because it allows you to have a dynamic LOD, which is how far you are away from the object. It changes its texture, for example, from epic to low, so it doesn't take that much performance of your PC anymore. And you can see exactly how it is coded in here. So you can see the overdraw, you can see what is not drawn in nanite, and so on. And you can also see the triangles and clusters. In this case, we only have one, but of course, there could be many of them. Right, so this is the debugging option I already showed you. Let's go back to lit and you will be in this mode again. Perfect. And we also have the options. I don't recommend this. I haven't figured out what exactly this does, but you can change your lighting here. And it won't get back to normal anymore, so don't untick this. Just change your lighting if you want to. And just change it in here. If you want to change your lighting, just go up there, go for the directional light and just change it to a different value. For example, we want 1,000 lux or 10,000 lux, and you can see your scene gets brighter and that will do the deal as well. So never click onto this. Right. You can also show only parts of this, or you can select you don't want to. Oh, wait, this was in the lit tab. Yeah, right. Now we go to show. You can select you don't want to show your grid anymore, you don't want to show landscape, and so on. So you can select anything you want to be shown or not to be shown in here. And you can also select which of the nanite parts you want to see, which of the lumen parts, and so on. Right. You can, interestingly enough, I've never seen that before, but you can also show or hide your volumes, such as the navigation volume and so on. Good. Now that we come to the moving options inside the viewport, we have a few options. Of course, you can move it like this. You can rotate it when you click on here. You can rotate it when you click onto here. You can scale it. If you take the middle one, it will scale in all three directions. If you just take, for example, the y-axis, it will just scale in the direction. Once you hold down your left mouse button, move the mouse. And you can also move it by W, E, and R. W will be the moving option, E will be the rotation one, and R will be the scaling. Don't ask me why they did it, but yeah, you can move it like this and you can change your selection mode up here. And it's also interesting, you have the option to move it locally. So we will have a local scale and that I can show you how that changes. We can just skip here and turn it a little. And now you can see this is the world scale, so it exactly aligns with our coordinate system down here. But once I click onto here, it's the local system, so I can move it how the object is rotated along its axis. Good. I also have the option if I'm too far or if I want to snap the surface, I can do that and it will do this, of course. And we can also pick, I won't do that anymore. And we can also pick a smaller size or a bigger size. So once I move it now, you will see it moves in 1,000 steps, not just 10. And this is how you can enable the grid snapping. And you can also disable it completely once you click here. You can see I can have let's go for straight values, something like this. Here we go. And this should be straight now. And now I can just untick this and I can move it continuously, as you can see, through the field. Right. We also have the option to enable or disable the rotation. So we just go into the rotation. We can pick, for example, we want 90 degrees. So we can just only rotate it 90 degrees once we move our mouse and hold down the left key. And we can also do 10 degrees and so on. So you're able to adjust your rotation and transformation as you like. You can also change the scaling. I guess you know already how it works, so I won't cover that. And you can change the camera speed not just by moving with the holding down the right mouse button and scrolling up and down, but you can also do it in here very efficiently by moving this up and down. Right. So now that we've everything covered inside the Unreal Engine, we can actually head further to the presentation. Perfect. Thanks for watching. That's it. Let's see you in the next lesson, I guess.